Right, let's continue then with the story on the final segment of the report into state capture. And of course, we have been expecting the fifth installment of the state capture report to be officially handed over, which will now be done on Wednesday, to be handed over to President Cyril Ramaphosa. We're now joined on the line by legal and transformation practitioner Thabo Masombuka to weigh in on the state capture reports by the Zondo Commission. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Masombuka. Great pleasure to see you once again here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Joe. Good afternoon, yours.
Let's start here. I mean, are there any sort of legal implications due to the postponements of the releasing of the final edition of the state capture report? Are there any legal implications to consider? Could one say that, is there a case for saying there might be, unreasonable delays of bringing it forward, or is it really laissez-faire? Whatever happens, happens.
The state capture report, the Commission of Inquiry is always in terms of the Commission of Inquiry Act of 1952, Section 3 in particular, that empowers whoever arm of government to put in place a Commission of Inquiry to zoom into facts and alleged incidents of misconduct, legally and otherwise. It has always got to be completed in its entirety before it is submitted to the executive authority that has set that commission up. We now know that there's only one, volume 1 of five reports. So this was meant to be the completion of the entire volumes. There are, as such, no specific legal implications, except that, as you would know, the country expects that there should be expedience, that any justice delay is justice denied in prosecuting those who are allegedly implicated in this report. But there are no glaring or adverse legal implications whatsoever.
Yeah. And in terms of those who have been implicated going forward, I would assume that some of them would want to clear their names, regardless of whether it goes through a court process. I mean, what options and rights do those implicated have going forward once we have, the entire report in the hands of the public and the president?
Remember, once any person is implicated or alleged to have been implicated in a process of a commission inquiry, they are always afforded an opportunity, either immediately after being implicated, to apply for cross-examination of those witnesses who would have seen some of the representation made by legal representatives on behalf of those implicated, where they were afforded a hearing to come and show cause why they need to place the version of those witnesses or those persons into question. But even after the completion of the report, and once Chief Justice Zondo has handed over the report to the President, it will simultaneously be made publicly available to be publicly consumed for public interest. And anyone, therefore, who still feel that they are aggrieved by the fact that they are mentioned in the report, what is called the opportunity of a legal review, to go to the High Court and place those facts that they feel that they were not procedurally and substantively canvassed properly, to then bring a legal challenge and a legal review. But in the absence of that, the National Prosecution Authority has already started initiatives to identify some of the pieces of evidence and determine whether those are winnable in court, meaning there's a prima facie case built on the basis of those versions to be able to bring to court and pursue criminal proceedings. And once those criminal proceedings are initiated, even those persons who are implicated, remember, still have another opportunity to then lead evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, as was said by the Chief Justice and indeed the chair of the Commission, took just over 4 years. And one asked the question in terms of how long do we then, is there an understanding of how long it will take for law enforcement agencies to then step in and we start to see action against some of those that are believed to be guilty? I mean, are we talking about waiting another 4 years, another 8 years? Will this happen in reality?
Well, unfortunately, the law, the wheel of justice turns very slowly, and it turns very slowly because justice demands that every person who's implicated, who's alleged of an offense, must be provided what is called a procedural fairness. In other words, they must be given an opportunity to dispute evidence available at their disposal by leading evidence to the contrary. It is one thing to have expectations of the public for what is called public expediency, and it's something else to ensure that justice is done and it's manifestly seen to be done. And unfortunately, given the amount of evidence that was presented before the commission, it took obviously longer because the commission needed to satisfy itself to the detail as to the procedural correctness and the fairness. Otherwise, you couldn't rush that process, lest you run the risk of people coming later and say, we were not given an opportunity to come and present, and they can use that in a later criminal proceedings as a what we call a point in limine, point in defense, to say we were not given the sufficient opportunity. Unfortunately, in processes like this, let alone the interest of the public to have this matter expedited, effectively, the third part is that justice in its nature requires thorough, detailed, extensive procedural fairness to be followed for justice to be seen to be happening.
All right. Thanks very much for giving us your time, Sir. Thabo Masombuka is a legal and transformation practitioner weighing in on the state capture report.